I was going to ask if you ever worry about safety. I mean, it's because it's just you out here.
I'm from New York. Like, this is really not so bad. Obviously, yeah, stuff happens and, you have to use your best judgment about how to deal with it. But, there's a bunch of other night watch and we all have a group thread. And if something's ever freaking me out, I just text the thread and be like, hey, what do I do in this situation?
When do you sleep and where do you sleep?
So the company gets us an apartment. There's like 8 of us there, so it's like 4 and 4. There's a couple bedrooms, a couple couches. It's comfortable. It's clean. I mean, as clean as it's gonna be living with 4 dudes. But
June Hagen, Night Watch at Uptown Christmas Trees. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Yeah.
In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Citizens Property Insurance, reminding consumers while shopping for insurance to consider all aspects of a policy, including potential assessments. More information is available at citizensfla.com or by contacting a Citizens agent. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, Eastside versus Eastside. A community rift develops over city investment dollars. We talk to both sides about their differences and the path ahead. Then, mindfulness disguised as magic. We talk to the author of a new tween novel designed to help kids discover inner strength. And we ask our resident spaceman what he thinks of night sky apps and how to catch a glimpse of the Geminid meteor shower before it's gone. Join the conversation. Give us a call on air at 904-549-2937 or head to firstcoastconnect.org where you can find all the ways to connect with us and also sign up for our new daily newsletter, which delivers program information and a sneak peek at upcoming guests to your inbox every day. Stick around. We'll be back right after the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The search continues for a suspect in the deadly mass shooting at Brown University. Officials say they're pulling together a growing body of surveillance footage. They hope it will help them identify the person of interest. From Ocean State Media in Providence, Rhode Island, Ben Berkey has more.
Investigators are cobbling together footage from private surveillance systems, Ring doorbells, and Teslas in the neighborhood next to Brown's campus. When combined, investigators say this footage is creating a clearer picture of their suspect, a heavy-set person in dark clothing who carried a satchel and wore a winter hat and a surgical mask. Providence Police Chief Oscar Perez says he thinks even this limited footage could help someone recognize the person of interest.
You want to focus on the body movements, the way the person moved their arms, the body posture.
Perez says the suspect arrived in the neighborhood over 5 hours before the shooting. He and other investigators said they still have no information about a possible motive. For NPR News, I'm Ben Burke in Providence.
The Trump administration is racing ahead with a program to build new nuclear reactors by next summer. NPR's Jeff Brumfield reports that has some safety experts worried.
The reactor pilot program is for new reactor designs. A company called Valor Atomics is one of the participants. CEO Isaiah Taylor says it's just what the industry needs.
Private nuclear companies can do R&D again in real hardware with real neutrons and then get ready for commercialization.
But critics like former nuclear regulator Allison McFarland warn the program is moving too quickly.
This is not okay, and this is not going to lead to success. And this is how to have an accident.
The Department of Energy, which runs the program, says safety is a top priority. It hopes to have at least 3 reactors running by July 4th. Jeff Brumfield, NPR News.
White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles is rejecting a Vanity Fair magazine profile of her as a, quote, hit piece. Wiles spoke on the record and very frankly to reporter Chris Whipple about White House colleagues and internal tensions. She described President Trump as having an alcoholic's personality. Trump famously does not drink alcohol. Reporter Chris Whipple says that Wiles helped her father, famed sportscaster Pat Summerall, recover from alcoholism.
She'd be the first to tell you, and she told me that she makes a specialty of difficult men. It began with Pat Summerall. She managed Ron DeSantis' winning gubernatorial campaign in 2018, and now famously, of course, got Donald Trump elected in 2024.
He spoke to NPR's All Things Considered. White House officials have offered strong support for Wiles, the first female White House chief of staff. This is NPR.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News, 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. There are 3 $1,200 college scholarships being offered by the Florida Supervisors of Elections Association to students majoring in political science, public administration, and more. You can find the application as well as a complete list of qualifications online at duvalelections.gov. The deadline to apply is March 6th. Researchers at the University of South Florida discovered a steep decline in sargassum, a brown seaweed found in large floating masses despite huge swaths of it inundating beaches in Florida and beyond. Chris Young reports they say high temperatures in the Gulf may be to blame.
After analyzing satellite data, researchers found the smelly seaweed had steep population declines in the Gulf and the North Sargasso Sea. When sargassum washes ashore and decays, it emits foul odors and disrupts coastal communities. But while it's in the water, USF College of Marine Science Assistant Research Professor Brian Barnes says it serves as an important habitat for marine life.
Just like we talk about deforestation and we talk about the losing rainforests in the Amazon and so forth. This habitat has been called the rainforest of the sea, and we are losing it.
Barnes says record high temperatures in the Gulf likely play a role in the decline. While sargassum in the Gulf prefers temperatures between 68 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, summer water temperatures in the Gulf have recently exceeded 86 degrees. I'm Chris Young.
After the cooler air that we had earlier this week, a warming trend begins today. Highs this afternoon reach the low to mid-70s in northeast Florida.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a historic Jacksonville neighborhood targeted for historic investment is now experiencing a historic rift. We break down the source of the disagreement and what it might take to bring the community together. Later in the program, helping kids unlock their inner strength, we meet the local author of Skylar and the Moonstone Medallions. But first, with $115 million ultimately headed to the city's historic East Side as part of the Jaguars stadium deal, tensions over who should control the money and how it should be managed have surfaced. Today, we're hearing from both sides of the community rift. Here to discuss it, we are joined by Travis Williams, President and CEO of Lift Jacks, and a longtime supporter of the Together Eastside Coalition. Good morning, Travis. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Ann. Thanks for having me.
We're also joined by attorney Leslie Jean-Bart. She is representing the Together Eastside Coalition Incorporated. Good morning, Leslie.
Good morning, Ann.
So let me start just by thanking both of you for participating in this. I know that this has been sort of a tense issue in the community. I appreciate your willingness to discuss the issue. But I do want to start with something that is arguably a little petty in this fight, and that is the name, Leslie. So there are 2 organizations that essentially have the same name. There's the Together Eastside Coalition, and there's the Together Eastside Coalition Incorporated. You represent the latter, and we need to explain that. So your group, I think some would say, stole the name. Is that an inaccurate way to put it?
I think that the name was used. It was not incorporated, and they did decide to take the name and incorporate it. That happened before I got involved, and some might say it's petty. I won't disagree with that. I mean, from a reasonable standpoint, it probably was to kind of needle the other side.
Yeah. Okay. And so the incorporated group is more recent, and the incorporated group has raised some concerns.
Right.
Travis, the non-incorporated group that you have been affiliated with over the last few years and are associated with through Lift Jacks, but also through your own work in the community. This is sort of what we often think of as the orange shirt group. They would wear
Orange wave.
Yeah, they would wear these bright orange shirts to city council meetings during the early CBA process. And some would say that's sort of the original group. I want to ask Leslie about kind of when her group formed and why, but when did your group form and why?
Yeah, well, I think the forming of the group was residents, business owners, stakeholders, faith leaders, organizational leaders learned a lesson in 2021 with Lot J. The night before there was a vote on Lot J, we were in a church basement. There was no Lift Jacks. My organization was just newly formed. I wasn't working with the organization. I was an executive with Kids Hope Alliance at the time. And we were in the church basement meeting about Lot J. There was the idea of a CBA at the time. We had a council member in a meeting with us. And then the next night, the council member did something different than what they said they were going to do in that meeting.
Who was the council member?
We won't have to get into those details.
Was that the district council member?
No, it wasn't district
Okay.
council member. And I think that details regardless at this point. I think there are a lot of lessons learned from Lot J. As a community.
And just to remind us, Lot J was adjacent to the stadium. The Jaguars
Yes.
wanted to turn it into kind of a entertainment district,
Yep.
restaurants. Why was the community paying attention to that in the first place?
Well, it's our neighbor, and most folks will say, a lot of folks, Les and I both have roots in the neighborhood. When I talk to my grandparents when they were alive or their peers, that's just the most southern part of their neighborhood still.
Mm-hmm.
It's now called the Sports Entertainment District, and so it's important because it's proximate, and development impacts those most proximate, and that impact can be positive or it can be negative. And so, sitting in that room, and then the next night when it got voted down, that hurt, I think, a lot of folks, because there was an opportunity for this CBA idea potentially tied in that deal, and then it just fell away like that. The lesson we took away from it was that we, and I put the quotes around we, and the community is always folks who show up somewhere, we were not organized and formalized to have that conversation. And when the idea came back around, when the Jaguars took another attempt at it, we as a collective, those who were just doing work, there was no group necessarily. I remember sending an email out in 2023 to a group of folks that I just did work with, residents, business leaders, et cetera, and said, hey, this is back on the table. We should meet to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I nerded out about CBAs for like a period of a few months. And we met in a church basement. There was no group. It was a group of people and they just invited whoever they want to invite. And that group of people started a journey of figuring out, how do we show up better the next time in this process of doing a CBA? And that work started in the fall of 2023 with just a group of people who were inviting folks that I know well now.
Mm-hmm.
I just met them in 2023 because someone invited them to this church basement meeting. And that turned into a series of just meetings and sessions. I brought this with me. I went to my office to buy it this morning.
For people who aren't watching our live stream, you're holding a really thick stack of rainbow-colored sticky notes, all written on.
All written on. Different hand. There's some handwriting you can't read. Some people's handwriting is really good. But these sticky notes are the genesis of the CBA, because a group of people, again, residents, business owners, faith leaders, organization leaders, met and began to throw ideas out about, okay, if this is going to happen, what are the major things that are needed? And really the genesis of what's in the CBA now. I can go through some of these notepads and see the ideas of those community members.
Read one for us.
So this first one says the orange should be for workforce. This is a color code. Blue is for economic development ideas. Yellow is for housing ideas. and lime green is for AFLA brand off or APR ideas. And it, this orange one says workforce allocation to the east side, like jobs for the east side, commitment to hire workers for neighborhood jobs, placemaking and landscaping along the corridor.
So that's sort of the genesis of the group, and
Yeah.
obviously, built on the sticky notes, community input. Leslie, your group formed more recently, and you did so as a reaction in many ways to sort of the way things were going or concerns about where they're going. Explain to us your group's concerns.
So, yes, my group formed more recently. Together Eastside Coalition, the original group, was very instrumental, of course, in bringing the CBA and getting it accomplished. And the understanding, I think, amongst a lot of people is once the CBA was voted on and accepted, that there was no longer an actual Together Eastside Coalition. But the issues that rose up, because we have some people who were part of the initial coalition, we have people who were displaced from years ago when the stadium was renovated on the east side and they came and took homes, the city did. And people like myself, where my family originated from the east side. I'm a fifth generation Jacksonville native. I love to say that. And my family started off on the east side on Florida Avenue. But now that we're at this point where the CBA has been instituted, we have to remember that this is taxpayer money. And so all of us in Jacksonville have a stake in this. All of us in Jacksonville should have input in this. And yes, you want to consider the people who originated it, but we're now dealing with taxpayer money and everybody should be invested in how it's spent. One of the key differences is that the original group wants the money to go to a 501c3 as the funding agent for the city for funding these grants. And my group wants the money to stay within the city until maybe some benchmarks are made, but not to just immediately go out to a 501c3. We definitely want more transparency, accountability, and oversight. I'm keenly aware of how money can be misspent in the city of Jacksonville. And also, we know that there have been many promises made to parts of town like the East Side that have not been kept. And so having more eyes on the money, more access to knowing what's happening with the money is very important to my group.
And I would say that's a point that we agree on. That has been a championing point.
Which point?
The transparency,
Okay.
oversight. That's something that there's no. You used a strong word, I think, rift, which I don't tend to agree. I don't think this is a rift in the community. I think it's a dynamic moment, and there's difference of opinion. And I think sometimes in these conversations, neighbors like the East Side aren't allowed to be dynamic. They're expected to be monolithic. And doesn't everyone know each other and everyone's family? And that is unfair, because if you go into any neighborhood in the city, you will find rifts about stuff. And this is big enough to have a plethora of opinions and ideas all looking to get to similar solutions. And so, those concepts of oversight and transparency, those are things that, we've championed and wanted to have since our first presentations to City Council back in 2024. And so, those are things that agreement.
I think that's a good point and absolutely, worth acknowledging. This is not a monolithic community, nor should anyone expect it to be. And yet, what I'm describing as a rift has at time gotten acrimonious in terms of the allegations, I guess, is one way to put it, that Leslie's group has brought in terms of questions about, how money has been handled in the past by some of the organizations involved in the original coalition, whether they've been reliable stewards of taxpayer dollars. And that has gotten a little bit spicy, I would say. So, Leslie, can you just lay out a little bit about what those concerns are, why there are concerns about, if some of the existing original coalition members have oversight or a large role in the CBA, why that might be concerning to the members of your group?
So, you don't want any one group having majority control over anything, right? And so there are concerns because a large part of the original group has ties to other nonprofits that have been working in the area on the east side. And questions about how that work has been done, how it's been fulfilled. Have they handled the community with the care that people would expect? And that, I think, is part of the concern about why the money should not go to a nonprofit that could have majority control from existing nonprofits. The idea that that could happen. And the first draft of the bylaws that came out, stated Eastside Coalition would pick 5 of the 9 members. And so, the concerns are valid in the sense that past behavior can sometimes, of course, determine future behavior. And there are certain people in my group that I represent who have concerns about, current conditions of the East Side and how they've been handled.
And I want to drill down into that a little bit more, but first I just want to reset. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Travis Williams and Leslie Jean-Bart about differing visions of East Side redevelopment. If you are from or live or work in the East Side, we would love to hear from you. You can give us a call on air at 904-549-2937, or you can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also go to firstcoastconnect.org and find all of the ways that you can connect with us. We have a call from Ariane on the historic East Side. Good morning. Thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Ariane Randolph, and I'm a generational resident of Jacksonville Historic Eastside and a member of the unincorporated Together Eastside Coalition. I really appreciate the conversation this morning and the spirit in which is being held. I want to confirm or affirm that many of us who live here on the East Side have been engaged in this process for about 2 years and really share a sense of responsibility to protect the community and to steward the future of it very well. Community benefits agreements were originally created as a tool for communities closest to the pressures of large-scale development to help turn those pressures into positive, lasting outcomes for residents. In that posture, that's the posture we're coming from. We want to collaborate, we want accountability and care for a place that we call home. And different perspectives are a part of that work. But we all share the same goals in building a stronger East Side that benefits current and future residents. So really, I just want to offer gratitude and thank you for holding space for this thoughtful conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ariane. We also have a call from Marty in Arlington. Good morning, Marty. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. I also want to piggyback off of what Ariane just said, that I appreciate this expanded segment. And I'm hopeful by the end of the segment, we can put to rest them versus them type of conversation, because that's not what this is. I'm a 4th generation Eastsider, born and raised, the daughter of a mother who's been there close to 70 years. We have properties that extend back almost a century. So I would be what they would consider legacy Eastside. But legacy to me is more than about the time. It's about what you build and who you build it for. So I am thankful for the work that the original Together Eastside Coalition has done to place the Eastside residents at tables we historically just weren't invited to. And I appreciate the spirit in which they go about doing business. They have the table manners, to be able to push things forward, the collaborative spirit, connecting with a lot of different groups, which shows that the coalition is working, right? To be connected to multiple different people, that the building of bridges is what we want. We don't want to burn the bridges. We want to build for the next generation. We don't want to bury it. So I am thankful that they exist and what they're doing is beautiful. And it reflects that unified, community-centered spirit of the East Side that I'm used to, that I've grown up in, that my mother has grown up in. So, we want to think about a path forward. It's collaboration rooted in facts, not adversarialism, not sensationalism, not distractions, right? Because as Dr. King said, where do we go from here? Community or chaos? And I think that that's a question for the other side to choose. So thank you.
Thanks, Marty. Appreciate your call. We also have a call from Latavia Harris, who I believe is a member of Leslie Jean-Bart's group, the Incorporated Group. Good morning, Latavia. Welcome.
Morning. How are you?
Very well. Go ahead with your comment, please.
So with this comment, and I just like everyone to know that what the East Side demonstrates is a cultural destination. What we have, you don't see in many other existing African American or Afro American communities. When our coalition started, it was because the other entity was only allowing people to come to the meetings based on signing their voice over in an MOU. That wasn't constructed as community-led. The only thing our coalition structured the Together Eastside Coalition for was accountability, and that this money needs to be watched. Some of these other entities have received millions over a period of time and have not done the work that was supposed to be done. You know, we don't see good structure development, but they have received, you know, the funds for that. So in our group, we're saying, listen, we don't want the money. Nobody should have it. It should have enough oversight and shadowing that every time a dollar moves, there's eyes on this money. Because there are a lot of benchmarks that need to be met, and they haven't been met in the previous checks and balance systems. So it's not a personality. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance for the East Side to finally get things that they actually deserve. And it is taxpayers' dollars. Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest dilemma, and Ms. Jean-Bart have been fighting this as well. What is the problem about the money staying within the city?
Latavia Harris, yeah, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it. I know she's been very involved in this issue. Travis, what do you say to her concerns about, you know, what is to show for millions of dollars that have already flowed in investments to the East Side? I know that there's a couple of apartment complexes in particular that have been raised as concerns because Lift Jackson, another organization, acquired them to develop as affordable housing or redevelop. And they have continued to have some problems in terms of, you know, the quality of the apartments. So that's been one issue that some people might say, you know, what do we have to show for this money that we've gotten? Is it really being used to the best ends?
Yeah. Well, to that, I say, come take a ride with me and I can show you. I think that's the beauty of the work. And, you know, the East Side may be we had one of the council members say, this is $1 billion problem. Like, it may be a $10 problem, and we may have been able to solve $2 worth of that problem in a short 5-year period of time that we've been an organization. But I can tell you, you know, if I put you in a golf cart and rode you around, you can see where dollars have gone. I mean, you can see entire blocks that have changed. If I sit on the porch of Miss Cuda, who's a resident on Florida Avenue, she's been in that home for over 50 years. And I was just randomly on her porch a few weeks ago, and I said, how does it feel, this entire block where the Deb store is, which that's, you know, one main example of us stewarding public dollars.
The first grocery store in the East Side.
Yeah.
In
a minute. In a minute. It's a clear example of being able to steward dollars to bring something that, quite frankly, in 2020, 2021, people told us the neighborhood didn't deserve a grocery store yet. And I said, how does it feel, Ms. Gould? And she said, I just can't believe this entire block has changed. In 2 years, the block went from only 2 occupied parcels on the entire block, only 2 occupied parcels out of 12 parcels, to now there's only 2 unoccupied parcels on the entire block in a short period of time. And so I can take you to parks that have been upgraded. I can take you to playgrounds at Flossie Brunson Park, where 2 summers ago, that playground was the same playground I played on in the 90s. Many parts of it had not been really updated. And I can show you where 7 figures of investments partnering with the city of Jacksonville have gone into improving the parks. I can show you homes of seniors that have been repaired where they can stay in their home, drive down blocks and show you new roofs on, you know, almost every home on a block. I think part of the challenge is we have a lot of people that love the neighborhood and have deep love. But those most proximate to the work sometimes tend to see change quicker than those who may have a love and a passion but may not be as proximate. But I encourage anybody to come take a golf cart ride with me. I just did it with Mark Woods a few weeks ago.
From the Times Union.
From the Times Union. We do it all the time so people can actually see where things are going, where are dollars going, how parks have transformed, businesses with new signs, et cetera. But that doesn't mean there's not more work to be done too. It doesn't mean that there's not tons of new work that still needs to be done. And the apartments in particular have come a long way and still have a long way to go. We're not the property manager. We've never been the property manager. We provided capital to save that complex from no longer being HUD housing. That was the very specific thing. Not to extend this answer, but I think this is important. You asked, I want to give this detail. I grew up across the street from a complex called Franklin Arms. If it's probably called the Carter. If you grew up in the neighborhood, you know it as the Carter, New Jack City. I looked at that building every day of my life until I was a junior in high school. That building, when I first moved into that home in the early 90s, was senior housing. It had the HAP contract, as in it was public housing. And then it lost that contract. And it turned into one of the worst, most infamous complexes in the city. First Street and 7th Street apart, that's what we call it, being from the neighborhood. The previous landlord was in court with HUD, being
These
sued.
two apartments you're talking
These two
about?
apartments.
Yeah.
They had failed HUD grades. The secretary of HUD herself, Secretary Fudge, came to Jacksonville just to visit these complexes. And they were the worst of the worst. And so this wasn't work we got into because we thought it was glamorous. This private developer had a history of rehabbing HUD complexes. And we had dollars that we had been allocated that went strictly to capital improvements to make sure that this complex kept its HUD status. It was already affordable housing. That it kept that HUD status, that HUD did not remove that HUD contract from it. It went from a failing grade to a passing grade in just 18 months. But that doesn't mean the work is finished. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of more repairs. We plan on holding the property manager accountable, continue to hold accountable. Our role is case management. We have a case manager that works with tenants. She's actually a former tenant of the complex, and she's a resident now that lives across the street that now does case management work. And our role is to hold the property manager accountable, to continue to collaborate with them and make sure that we may be from A to C now, but it doesn't mean that we still have progress to go. So I would say to anyone, come take a ride with me and I can show you how we've been able to, in a short period of time, be good stewards of resources.
We're talking about discussions on the East Side about the future of that community and the use of the community benefits agreement dollars. We've got a bunch of calls waiting, but Leslie, Jean-Bart, I want to ask you about that first. These are the apartment complexes that were formerly Eastside Terrace and Eastside Gardens that he's talking about, the 1st and 7th Street apartments. They're now Townsend Flats and Boylan apartments most recently, and they have had these persistent problems. Why does that strike you or your group members as an indicator or a red flag?
Well, certainly these apartments were an issue back in 2023 when LiftJacks did get involved. The idea was to improve the living conditions of the people who were there. And we're here in 2025, and there's approximately 96 units. We were told a couple weeks ago 76 of them are done. That leaves 20. If you're in one of those 20 units that was in terrible condition back in 2023, then yeah, you're not happy. And so I certainly believe that our group called a lot of attention to that. The city council member had a meeting with the management company, and, advocacy helps move things along. And, there was an incident where sewage was rolling down, coming down the walls and going out into the street. These are vulnerable families who don't have an option to pick up and move somewhere else. They're kind of stuck where they're at. And so making sure that they have living conditions that anybody would want to live in is very important. And so that was certainly a big concern.
Yeah,
All right.
Agreed. Everything she just said, agreed. And there's more work to be done and more accountability to be had.
All right. We've got a call from Rakeem on the north side. Good morning, Rakeem. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. How are you all doing this morning?
We're very good. Go ahead. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Yes, ma'am. I appreciate the opportunity. I just want to say this to all parties involved. I have been a longtime resident of Jacksonville, Florida, and I have seen the improvements happening on other sides of town in reference to the roads, in reference to just general landscaping and things like that. And in my experience over the years, and with me going to the east side, I've seen that the city as a whole, just the city of Jacksonville, doesn't pay very much attention to this side of town. So the fact that these two organizations have formed to stand up for what is something that is very historic, I commend both sides. Now, in saying that, I want you all to remember that even though this money that's been allotted feels like a breadcrumb, one day that money is going to be gone, okay? And this situation right now has a lot of eyes on it. There's tons of calls waiting right now. There's a lot of attention on this situation. I want you all to be mindful that you all are pioneers for something that's very large. The potential for what you all are doing is very, very large. And I want you all to remember that there are going to be opportunities for other nonprofits and other organizations that are going to form in light of what you all are doing that are going to face the same issues with monies and things like that. So I just want you all to remember throughout this disagreement that has become, you all are very professional. Mr. Travis and the other young, you all are very professional. You all know what you're talking about is, and the reference to getting things done. Very big brains involved in this, but I think the people from the outside looking in who aren't in those rooms and aren't in those meetings and aren't actually in the community, it's turning into something that's it has the potential to be very embarrassing, and it has the potential to be something that could be frowned upon. The fact that we're even sitting here on the radio discussing this right now, when we know how the East Side operates, it's a big brotherhood already. This could have been handled in a different light. But the fact that it is on the radio now, I just want you all to be mindful that the future is still coming. This is a vehicle, and sometimes in a long road trip, the drivers have to switch because one driver might know a back road or might know a different avenue or a different outlet, and sometimes somebody else might be good at picking the songs. So just be mindful that you all have the major opportunity to do something major in this city, and in light of something that should have been done a long time ago.
Rakeem, thanks for the call. And I do want to get to some other calls, but I'll just kind of ask you to address that because I know that there is sometimes, concern about, a rift like this becoming a conversation that involves people outside the community, and, how that could be a setback. And so I'm sure that you're both mindful of kind of the concerns that Rakeem is raising. Your thoughts?
I think one of the things in this process is one of the things we shared just in a community meeting. There's been tons of those that, probably 20 over the last 2 years that we've hosted just broadly, community open in church banquet halls, et cetera, lots of dynamic conversations. And I think one of the things we haven't done well is we haven't given ourselves enough grace during this period of time because we literally set out to do something. It's very comfortable to have this conversation now that it's already happened. But we literally didn't know if this was going to work. When we first got at this, we didn't know if the city was going to listen. We didn't know if they were going to take us seriously. And we were building a plane while flying it and figuring out, talking to experts around the country, figuring out how does this thing work. And history was made. A motley crew of folks who love a neighborhood made history and work with the Jaguars, who are great partners, work with the mayor's office, who was a great partner. This wouldn't have happened without them, and produced a historic moment. And so I think we do as a community need to give ourselves grace to figure out. And then the other thing I would say too, to clarify a point, the Together Eastside Unincorporated Coalition is not an organization. It was never intended to be an organization. Intentionally, we did not create an organization. We found a toolkit, a CBA toolkit that was produced in Ohio that became like a Bible for us. And it has steps of how to negotiate a CBA as in a community. The first step was form a coalition, not an organization, but a coalition, diverse group that represent the community, residents, business leaders, faith leaders, experts, to do the work of negotiating the CBA. And I think that can be complementary. Like the incorporated group has more of an advocacy bend, which advocacy, to Leslie's point, is needed. It raises things. The coalition was a working group. It was really meant to do work together over a period of time with the sole purpose of negotiating the CBA. But I love the point that the brother made. This is an historic moment. It's something we can celebrate. And it's also something that we should be very, very proud of. And there's a lot of work ahead to continue to be done to make sure these dollars are stewarded and that people can see where these dollars are going.
Leslie.
Travis, you're very long-winded. I you know. So I really want to get to like the CBA and like what we're looking for. We've had a lot of issues come up in Jacksonville with nonprofits getting money from the city and then, misappropriating those funds. We've seen that locally, we've seen that statewide, and that's why we want the money to stay within the city. And I know one narrative about our group was like our group wanted the money. There's millions involved. People come out and they want the money. Our group does not want the money. I want to be very clear about that. We want to make sure the money is protected. I think at the end of the day, all of us want to see transformative change on the East Side. This has to be successful. And so we've met in our group and we've decided that it's better for the money to stay within the city than to go out to we're talking about a brand new nonprofit like created a couple of weeks ago. And that's just not a practical solution in our opinion.
So the difference here is this 501c3 that has been created that would be the overseeing this disbursement of money,
right,
which is set to start flowing pretty soon as the beginning of next year, essentially $4 million kind of in the pipeline. Why? I think some people would say, well, this is all about the community involvement, the community's future. Why wouldn't you want the community in charge as opposed to the city?
So
which we should say has historically not been great about necessarily investing in some neighborhoods.
So it's not just the city. It would be still a board of individuals that would be in charge of scoring grant applications and awarding the grant applications. So it wouldn't just be city employees who are doing this. We're still talking about potentially 9 people who would be appointed from the community and from outside of the community, but definitely many people from the community making decisions about how money is going to be allocated and scoring the applications. So we're not talking about it being strictly city. Just the dollars are within the city with more eyes on them.
Okay. I just want to take a couple calls here if we can. Cindy on the East Side. Good morning, Cindy. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to just weigh in on 2 things, and I'll try to be succinct. One is my name is on the group, although I don't claim any early intense involvement or work that the people have done, but I have gone to multiple meetings. And one of the very first ones, maybe the first one I went to, was at, I think, the Oakland Church. And I was introduced to the CBA and what was going on with this particular group. Actually, I went to a phone Zoom meeting before that. But I just want to say I was so impressed that they had done so much and that there was such a large community involvement and support for this. And it's just been really impressive to see them start from such a small group of a few people to this point now where they have gotten recognition, where they have advocated with the community to get these funds, and I applaud them. Secondly, I want to address this thing about the money and being inside or outside the city. In one of the meetings I went to recently, it was a city meeting with this group, both groups. There's so much oversight that's going to happen with this funds that it's just kind of mind-boggling. I mean, the city has a very specific and orchestrated regulation about how funds are accounted for and dispersed. And the group will be comprised, the board, of people, a few members of the community, but also equally members who are appointed by the mayor's office and I think the city council. It's not going to be just an isolated group of Eastsiders. There's going to be a lot of eyes on this and a lot of support too. And I just don't think that's a fair assessment to worry about misuse of funds. I don't see that happening.
Cindy, thank you for your call. We also have a call from Michelle on the East Side. Good morning, Michelle. Go ahead.
Good morning, Ann. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good. This is the Honey Dripper Lady, if you didn't remember my name.
Oh, wonderful. The Honey Dripper Lady.
Yes.
We sure love your Honey Drippers.
Thank you so much. I just want to make a brief comment. I am a resident. I've been there most of my life. I'm also a business owner. I just briefly want to say, I think we would be better as a cohesive group if we don't point fingers and, like Travis say, come take a ride. I am a commissary. I had someone to come out a week ago. I wanted to put up 2 walls. The price tag was $8,000. So nothing is cheap. Nobody's taking anything. And what I always say in the meetings when I first started with this group was a house divided within itself will not stand. We need to get together
and make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We also have a call from Kim on the East Side. Good morning, Kim. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kim Black, and my daughter and I are a multi-generational family, and we are intentional Eastside residents and have been actively involved in the CBA process. We started going to Out East community meetings before my daughter closed on our home in Campbell's Addition in around June 2024. The point I want to make is that the unincorporated coalition had spirited debates over several meetings and decided that the cultural model would offer more flexibility with the creation of a 5013C.
And you mean the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville, which is the arts agency that disperses grant money?
The cultural model.
Yeah, they wanted to use that model of the Cultural Council. I just wanted to make clear what model. Yeah.
Yes. And by doing that, number one, we would keep the money in the community protected from the whims of city government. Two, we would allow for multiple funding rounds and sources. And three, the possibility of a TIF, which is imperative to sustain neighborhood revitalization that will outlive the CBA.
All right, Travis, what are we talking about when we talk about a TIF?
So I think that has been one of the most frustrating points, is because there's been total distraction from, I think, one of the biggest pieces on the board, and that is the TIF.
Tell us what a TIF is.
TIF is a tax incremental financing, and from the early part, our group has been saying these funds are great. The $115 million is spread out over a big area, and for sustainability purposes, a TIF needs to be a part of this for strong infrastructure improvements in the neighborhood. We've been advocating for a tax incremental financing to be a part of that.
And basically that allows tax dollars collected to be reinvested into infrastructure
if this goes well,
locally.
And being able to pull those dollars back into the neighborhood.
What has to happen to get a TIF?
Well, it's advocating with city council.
They have to designate.
Part of, and so the CRA has been on the chopping block.
The Community
for years.
Redevelopment Agency.
Yes, for years in Florida legislation. And so one of the research points we did was we found a state legislation called the UIRA, Urban Infill Redevelopment Area, which is the same TIF tool, not a CRA. It's a TIF. It's another funneling mechanism like a CRA, but the difference is it's not as tied to the oversight of political figures as a CRA. CRAs are very top-down, not bottom-up. URRAs have been used in a few cities, and a URRA allows for more community input. You have to have a community plan, and it allows for an established organization to be able to use those dollars for those kind of infrastructure things. And so that was a part of the idea and the recommendation around it, and a lot of distrust that people had in me, like, hey, we don't trust the city with this. And so that's where that recommendation came from, was baked in a lot of community feedback. But again, to Leslie's point about the oversight, I mean, I think restraining too at the end of the day, for me as an individual and the leader of an organization, my hope is that these dollars go to organizations that do great work that you can see, whether it sits with the city and it stays there, whether it goes this lot with the 501c3. The end goal is that the dollars are dispersed with high efficacy, high oversight, and that they go to transformational projects that people can see where the dollars went.
So Leslie, it's my understanding that the special committee that was created for the CBA has made the recommendation that they've recommended the 501c3 model, which is the Cultural Council model. It's also the KHA, the Kids Hope Alliance model. What problem do you see with that?
Well, one, the Cultural Council was in existence before it became the funding agency for the city of Jacksonville. So it had been around for a very long time, an established 501c3 before it became the funding agent. And we could look at Kids Hope Alliance, and we can see from its very creation, there have been problems up until recently. And it's been a continuous flow of problems. And with that in mind, I think that is one of the biggest indicators as to why starting a brand new organization and holding them accountable for all the regulations that are going to need to be in place to protect this money. Now, if the money goes to a 501c3 and it doesn't stay within the city, then our goal is to make sure that we're putting as many safeguards into the ordinance and the bylaws as possible to protect that money, to make sure that they're, following sunshine, public records, how the decisions are made, whether it's majority or supermajority. And so we're looking at whatever model comes out of this, that it is full of transparency, accountability, and oversight.
And so what is the timeline for making those decisions? What is happening next, and how can people get involved?
So right now, the special counsel, they just drafted the original ordinance, and I don't know if it's been filed yet, but it will be filed, and then it will be assigned to different committees for city council. So the public will have opportunities to go before city council at all of these different stops along the way for the committees until it gets to the city council itself. And then, of course, there's the opportunity to speak there. There's always the opportunity to reach out to your city council members to advocate for whatever position that you may have. And I think the timeline is, we're talking about maybe first committee meetings by early January. I think they may have said it was like maybe a 6-week process that we were looking at. And so it could be coming up pretty fast.
All right. Well, we are out of time. I really appreciate you all both taking the time and having the willingness to have this conversation. Travis Williams, Leslie Jean-Bart, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Go to www.outeastjacks.com/CBA to get information and be kept up to date about the CBA process too.
All right, excellent. Stick around. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to be talking to our resident spaceman about night sky apps and how you can catch the last of the Geminid meteor shower.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Accidents can happen when you least expect it. For decades, our attorneys have dug out the facts to help juries decide who's at fault.
More at TerrellHoganLaw.com. Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you.
Subscribe to Jacksonville's morning newsletter, Jacksonville Today. More than 50,000 of your neighbors are already receiving this free, fun, and engaging source of local info. Updates, events, voter guides come election time, and a feel-good story to brighten your day. We call it the little bit of joy. Get yours at jaxtoday.org/sign up.
New Mexico now has universal childcare. It will help parents and grandparents too.
Between 2021 and 2023, the state had the highest rate of children in kinship care in the nation.
Nationwide, more grandparents are taking on significant childcare duties or raising their grandkids on their own. Why is that happening, and what's its impact? That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement is spending millions to increase its surveillance capabilities. Things like geolocation, facial recognition, DNA testing, and more. In March, President Trump signed an executive order calling for more data sharing across federal agencies, leading to questions about the handling of personal information. The Trump administration's growing surveillance network, next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, our viewers on the First Coast can catch the last of a light show tonight. It is the Geminid meteor shower. It takes its final sprinklings, I guess, throughout the sky.
I like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
You got to put your hat on there. We're joined, as we are once a month, by Eddie Whistler. He's the director of Planetarium and Outreach at the Museum of Science and History. And we're glad to have you here during this interim period while the Numash is supplanting the old Mosh. But it's good to see you. How's it going?
Doing so good. I was at a school just yesterday. I'll be at a school on Friday, and been out and about at some retirement communities. So I'm still involved in bringing space and science and history to audiences in this time without a museum. So it's awesome.
And bringing it to us too. So the peak of the Geminid meteor shower may have passed, but explain to us what there's still an opportunity to see because there's so many meteors on this one.
Yeah, and the lighting is favorable. The moon is in a very waning phase where we get very little light from it, and it'll be early in the morning, as opposed to having it front and center outside. Whenever you can make it less light, whenever you can make the darkness much better for your viewing, then you're going to be able to see more of these. But it's severely diminished. The peak, you might be able to see 100 an hour, but if you were to go out tonight and take a look, let's say, right around midnight is going to be better-ish, you could see 20 to 40 an hour, and that's just going to continue to hack away.
And these are all over the sky, right? You don't have to be looking in a certain direction.
If you get yourself a telescope, you've done yourself a disservice in looking for meteors. So you want to be outside with your eyes wide open, laying out on a lawn or a field with your best view of, best field of view.
Yeah.
So that's what you're wanting to do.
Grab a beach towel and go out to the beach, maybe.
Yes. And have that stuff rain down upon you.
Yeah. And so this stuff, I do want to get to a little bit about apps. So briefly, but when these things, these meteors are showering around, what is happening? Where are they coming from, and where are they ending up?
So the Earth takes on, now this number, it moves around a lot based on whatever data is being collected, but the Earth takes in 300,000 tons of material every single year from space. The majority of that is from space dust, and a lot of it is from sand-sized particles from meteor showers being, blasted into smaller pieces. But then also, there's just small pieces in space that interact with our atmosphere and then settle. People search for this stuff on rooftops.
Not something that you can see with a night sky app because these are, of course, in motion. But a lot of people use these night sky apps. Yeah. You're not a big fan. Explain why.
It's not that I'm not a big fan. I don't find myself in a scenario where I'm utilizing the apps very much. I mean, to be fully truthful, somebody who lives every day inside of their planetarium, I actually don't get outside very much to look up at the nighttime sky. I'm looking at the nighttime sky a few hours every day. And I live in a bad part of town and with lots of light. So we have to purposefully get ourselves out. And then I have a great clear view of strong nighttime sky through a planetarium or through an app, right? So, but when I do get outside and I have a question, I do have a couple of night sky apps that I have on my phone that I'm able to just, aim up. They're so user-friendly. They're easy to use. I don't know the nuance and differences between them, but you put that thing up in the sky and you are able to identify, the constellation that you might not be familiar with. Click on a star and get all of the information about that star, its mass, its temperature, how old it is, how far away, yada, yada, yada.
And you noted that there's some that at least offer a setting that doesn't destroy your night vision, that you can kind of have a red light version so that you're not staring at this bright light app and then trying to look at stars.
Yeah, critical. If you're out trying to observe things and it doesn't have a red setting, because red light doesn't destroy your eye, your adaptation to dark skies as easily, right? So you turn down put on that red, and if it doesn't have a red setting where everything that you're reading is red, then
turn it off.
Find another app.
Right.
They probably all have it.
Eddie Whistler, time flies, as do the meteors, but
I love that.
We're out of town. I hope you have a great holiday. Thanks for coming in. This is like our last of the year with you, so thank you for coming in all year long and helping us appreciate what's out there in the cosmos.
It's always so much fun.
Yeah.
So, 2026, will you have me back?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not going to let you out of our clutches.
Come on.
All right. Eddie Whistler, thanks for being here. Thank you for listening. That's our program. If you missed anything, you can find all our past and current shows at firstcoastconnect.org. While you're there, you can sign up to get show news, including a breakdown of our upcoming guests and topics delivered to your inbox every weekday. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapow. Our show's directed by Brady Corum, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when we sit down with government expert Chris Hand to talk about state and local political headlines, also a look at the year ahead. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. Folio Weekly Magazine proudly supports WJCT, serving Northeast Florida since 1987. Folio, dedicated to delivering local stories and perspectives. Available at more than 650 locations or visit folioweekly.com.
This is WJCT News